All right. Well, back for another Jeltz. I haven't done one in a while, so we figured we'd kind of do some Philly sports updates, maybe just some sports updates in general. We just ran through the All-Star game. We're coming through trade season really in baseball. Had some interesting Flyers news. Eagles are going to ramp it up. Uh, maybe touch on the Sixers a little bit since they're kind of off-season stuff, and maybe a little bit of James Harden rumors there. Um, I don't know. Anyhow, I don't know. What do you want to start with?
Let's start with the Flyers, because let's start with something happy for once, right? So, I mean, so the first story we're going to talk about with the Flyers is not exactly happy, but it's going to lead into some happiness with the Flyers, at least on my part, and some hope for once, which we haven't had in Flyerland for a while. But so the other day, the Flyers were introducing one of the players, Hathaway, in his introductory press conference, and some social media PR guys and ladies got caught with a hot mic. And so it's well known at this point the Flyers are not, I mean, most likely not going to be a good team this year. They're not in a win now mode. They are in see what we have, plot a course going forward, figure out where this ship is headed and what we need to add to make it a viable championship caliber team. New front office staff, basically aside from the ownership, it's and the coaching staff, everything has changed. They're shipping out players for pennies on the dollar. They're retaining salary. We're going to see what these young kids can do that they have and see if they're potential building blocks or see if they're just players that will need to be replaced via draft or development or whatever. So anyway, they're introducing Hathaway, and this reporter goes, "So knowing," and I'm paraphrasing here, but knowing the Flyers' current situation and that they're basically rebuilding right now, how did that affect your decision, and why did you decide to come to the Flyers? And you hear over the microphone as he's starting to talk, somebody very clearly go, "Why does she keep asking that fucking question?" And I'm not adding the curse word. That is what the person said. And then you hear another voice go, "Well, yeah, the Flyers suck. Why would you want to sign with them?" So these are people who work for the Flyers who are mocking a reporter. And and so Keith Jones had to come out and make a statement and apologize on behalf of the team and the organization. And yeah, so that was the news that broke, the most recent news. Tom, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, people tend to say things that they probably shouldn't all the time anyway, and it just happened to be caught on a live mic. And you got to eat crow on that one.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone heard it. Oh well, I mean, that's just what it is. I mean, I mean, seriously, I mean, what else can you possibly do? You got caught saying it.
Right.
Now, the kicker is on the second part, though. Yeah, they Flyers suck. I mean, it's not exactly like they're wrong.
No, they're not wrong. And that's the thing, like, well, no, I mean, she was the other person was being sarcastic, like saying that they're like kind of acting like they were the reporter and basically saying,
Right,
"Oh, the
right, right,
Flyers
right.
suck. Why would you go to the Flyers?" And I mean, realistically, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at probably definitely a lottery team next year. Um, I would say probably one of the 5 worst teams in the league, depending. I mean, hey, listen, stranger things have happened. 93 Phillies, for instance.
Right,
Um,
right.
so they could catch lightning in a bottle. It's a young team. They're going to be hungry. They know that everybody thinks they suck. So maybe that provides the extra fire. And it's not like they're a team completely bereft of talent. They've got one of the upper tier, I'd say probably top half of the league in goalies, right?
Mm-hmm.
They've got some good young players sprinkled throughout the lineup. And depending upon what happens with injuries and recovery and what they end up doing before the start of the season, they could have a guy like Cam Atkinson. They could have a guy like Sean Couturier back in the lineup. There's players on this team that have proven track records. If they don't trade TK, if they keep, there's other players that they can keep that it's like, okay, all right, they keep Scotty Lawton. There's players. There's players on this team that can absolutely play the game and that can show, can kind of like stun the league. Owen Tippett, who they got to trade with the Panthers for Claude Giroux.
In the quick glance at the overall standings from this past season, there were 6 teams that were worse points-wise overall. They were actually within striking distance of, if you just kind of look at it overall, not by division necessarily, of a couple of other teams that were not too far ahead of them points-wise. Look, we're still talking bottom third, right? But it's better than being dead last, and you do have that potential to potentially thrust yourself maybe somewhere middle of the pack. I don't know that it gets any better than that. It could. 31 wins might turn into 35 to 40.
Right.
That might be where you're headed with it. I don't know, but I think what you said with let's see what you have and kind of go from there is probably all they can do.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Last year I was angry at the organization. I was disgusted by what I was seeing on the ice. I wasn't happy with the state of the team. It was just not fun to watch the Flyers last year. And I hate saying that because I love watching hockey games. I get so stoked for hockey season. But this year, last year, not knowing what we were headed for, seeing Chuck Fletcher still in charge, seeing just the absolute boneheaded fucking shit that he was pulling, knowing his track record and how he has just decimated the roster, made stupid boneheaded moves the whole time he was in charge. The signings that he made, the trades that he made, giving people away for nothing when it would have made more sense to just keep them.
Right.
Stuff like that. The draft picks between him and Hextall before him. Just watching the shit show that went on it was disgusting. Now, even if we're bad, I know the course that we're headed down. I know what we have a purpose again. So that makes me excited to watch it, and I have zero expectations. I know going into the season, this is probably not going to be the year that we break the fucking Stanley Cup drought in Philadelphia. And I know it's not going to be for another 5 to 10 years till we're talking about a legit contender. And I'm hoping closer to 5 than 10. If in 10 years something went wrong and we've had to kind of do a soft reset somewhere. But within 5 years, there's no reason why this team, if the leadership is what they look like so far, and if their ownership is willing to stick to the plan that this new leadership has put in place, there's no reason that in 5 years we're not talking an exciting young team that is contending for the playoffs and for the Stanley Cup. That's how it should play out. And so it's exciting to me to know that that's what's coming down the pike, and I want to see the building start now. And I'm excited to see the building start now, laying that foundation.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting to kind of see how it shakes out. I obviously hope it goes in the positive direction. Up from the 31 wins last year, and just let's just have some growth, and that's it. I want to touch on the Sixers real quick, just on the sheer fact that there has been some James Harden rumors. I know we don't talk a whole lot of basketball here, but he apparently still wants out.
Bye.
Yeah, he wants to go to the Clippers, and the whole thing to me is starting to reek again of the. I'm not putting him in the same category as Ben Simmons, but now it's like drag feet. He probably could have had a trade done. This guy's looks like he's locked in at 35 mil plus for the season. He's apparently not happy with how this is shaking out.
I'm not fucking happy either. Get the fuck out of Philly.
Yeah, it's just not I don't know. It was one of those things that like I really haven't been paying a whole lot of attention to. Saw his name come back up, and honestly thought to myself, how in the world is he still in a Sixers uniform?
Well, here's what pisses me off. All right, I get on one hand, okay, you're at least getting the Sixers something in return by opting in and then saying, "Hey, trade me, please." You could have opted out, and then you could, and then gone wherever you wanted for nothing, or it would have gotten the Sixers nothing. So on one hand, I appreciate the fact that you were at least willing to sign a deal with the intent of being traded. It's not the Sixers' fault that your trade value sucks.
Mm-hmm.
It's your play. You signed the contract so that the Sixers could make a deal. So now you, who signed that contract, need to deal with whatever the fuck it takes to get you out of town. And for something. Because you're getting paid. You are getting paid. You are a commodity. And at this point, you need to be patient, chill the fuck out. You probably shouldn't be demanding to be traded to a certain team. And you know what? You didn't do shit for Philly while you were here. So shut the fuck up and just go where you end up getting traded and just wait it out, dude. You need to just relax.
All right, enough on them.
Wow, that's I haven't gotten that fired up over the Sixers in a while.
Yeah, and I know I don't really have anything else to say. I don't really. His name was the only one that really popped up, so didn't really do any diligence or research on anything else that they're doing, which I don't think is much right now, honestly. So
no, they haven't made any real splashy moves. They brought in Pat Bev. They brought in Mo Bamba. They've brought in some pieces, but nothing that's like, nothing that's essentially making it a big two again with Embiid and insert name here. You had that with Harden, but Harden never lived up to that. So, and Embiid, honestly, I love Embiid, but the way he behaved after they got knocked out of the playoffs with the whole, well, James and I can't win it on our own. Motherfucker, I know you were hurt. I know you were. And it seems like every playoffs you're hurt. But at the same time, like, you didn't do a whole hell of a lot to help them win. You can't really be calling out your team. And you shouldn't be, as the leader, saying, "Oh, well, I'm the only one doing shit. Me and James Harden are the only ones doing shit." That ain't being a leader.
No, at all.
But that doesn't seem like that's what this team is about, really. Which makes me sad because I really dude, Embiid was the perfect Philly athlete if he just was able to get past that immaturity.
Yeah.
He talks shit on people constantly. He's just a big, dominant basketball player. And his attitude matches Philly's energy perfectly. But then he's got to go and be a baby. And I just can't look past that.
Yeah. No. You're not wrong. Not wrong. There's some baseball things I want to talk about. Something that we have not chatted about anyway. The Phillies, the whole league. The draft just occurred here within the last few days. Phillies had not really. They didn't have a second round pick. They only in the first they had 2 picks in the top 100. They had picked 27 and picked 98. And really beyond that, it gets to be a real crapshoot as to whoever's picked because there's so many people that are picked. But they picked Aiden Miller, who seems to be an intriguing pick. He's a shortstop, right out of high school. So really curious to see that one. I would think that he's drafted more because shortstops tend to be like, at least positionally, they're not necessarily locked into that.
Right, they're one of the best athletes on the field. And they
right,
can
exactly.
Slot in wherever you need them.
Play anywhere and what have you. But yeah, otherwise, within the first few picks, they picked up a couple of outfielders, Devin Saltibon and Tayshawn Walton, respectively, in rounds 3 and 4. Then they go for a couple pitchers, and then it's just a kind of a mishmash there. They did make an interesting pick, though. I don't know if you're familiar with this Kedin Hediger. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. He was a catcher. I don't know if does that name ring a bell to you?
No.
Okay, so this Kedin Hediger, they drafted him all the way down in round 11 at 343. He's a switch hitting catcher, power from the left side. I don't know that he'll be signed. It looks like he's committed to go to Oregon. But the guy apparently is just like raw tools. Like he just seems like he's one of those that could probably develop even though he's drafted that low. My take is if they decide to throw a lot of money on him, they might be able to retain him from going to college. But I have a feeling that this guy goes to college, he's going to be jumped up quite significantly, as he progresses and develops, if that's the case. Seems to be a very interesting one for anyone that was lower anyway, because everyone else was just like outfielders or pitchers pretty much.
Right.
That they picked up.
And,
this guy seems like a raw talent catcher, basically.
And I'm going to say this too, like I'm kind of after reading up on Aiden Miller a little bit, I'm excited to see him and see how things progress for him, knowing his background. And did you read anything about him?
A little bit.
So he grew up and lived near the spring training facility in Clearwater, and was consistently going to spring training and everything. And so he kind of almost in a way grew up in the culture of the team.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's super interesting. Like I'll be very interested to see how that plays out. And especially knowing that, he's followed the team since he was a kid. So it's almost like a hometown player without growing up in the area, but still being exposed to everything,
Right.
There's a large contingent of, Delaware Valley transplants in the Clearwater area because of spring training. So it'll be very interesting to see how he develops, and I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for all of them, obviously. I want them all to turn out to be great draft picks, great players, and have amazing careers. But especially him, I'm taking a special interest in him. So
yeah, no, and I think I heard that he's an Eagles fan as well. So oddly enough, I don't know if that's true, but yeah, no. So pretty much been a world class hitter through his entire high school career. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with him as development. I can't think that he would sniff the majors until 27-ish, maybe. Being as young as he is, I just don't see it. I don't think he'll stay at shortstop either, personally.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. He is obviously he was their first round pick, so he's got the most intrigue. And conversely, the Phillies have had some really interesting things happen with their draft picks lately. And look at how, I don't know if you've paid attention to what Mickey Moniak's doing out in Los Angeles. Have you seen his numbers?
No. It last time I saw wasn't good, but how is he doing now?
Okay, so Mickey Moniak this year, now granted, he's only had 130 at-bats, I believe, because he was coming off injury. But he's hitting 308 with 10 homers, 28 RBIs.
No kidding.
Oh, yeah, he's tearing it up. So that is going to be very interesting because, the Phillies got Brandon Marsh from the Angels in the O'Hop deal. So basically made Moniak, kind of it was like the way that ended up working out was a change of scenery. Because they dealt Moniak to get Syndergaard, and which ended up being a rental. I could certainly argue the point that Marsh is a much better fit for the team and in center. But That's just one of those cases where it's like the Phillies saw it and the kid didn't work out in Philly. There's a little bit of a history of injury there, and wow, he's really turning it up. So think about that. Realistically in your lineup with a kid that's got 140 at bats, 10 homers, and Mike Trout gets healthy again, and if Ohtani sticks around,
it could get interesting out there.
And that's the other thing too is now it's like, well, do they dish Ohtani now to get a haul because he may not resign?
Yeah, and dude, can you? It's a pipe dream. It's never gonna happen. God, could you imagine Ohtani in Philly?
Even as a rental, they would have to dump like the entire top 10 prospects, basically. And I don't know that's enough.
I don't know, man. I secretly hope they don't trade him. He gets pissed, and then he signs with us as a free agent. Because I feel like any team that trades for him is going to have obviously the inside track on signing him.
Oh, right? Yeah.
So unless he does a deal where he's like, all right, let's replenish does like a handshake deal with the Angels, like, all right, trade me, replenish the system, get whatever parts you can, and then I'll sign with you in the offseason, and maybe that's something that happens. I don't know that. I just, dude, I would love to see him. And granted, look, Trout is definitely on the downslope in his career. Doesn't mean I don't want to see him in Philly any less.
Yeah, and here's what sucks. Look at the people that they have signed too, and this goes back for years too. They have historically now signed these top flight players, or somehow managed to acquire them, and it just not work out. I mean, look at the deal they made, and what they get Jared Weaver and Pujols, and and you have Trout, and they sign Anthony Rendon, and you're basically talking about players at their time at that given times, like the best player at that position, right, and they're still not winning. Like that tells me that there's something wrong with the culture there, and it's just not. And I'm not saying that like it's anyone on the team's fault. I mean, there has been a history of injuries, but you basically have Babe Ruth on your team, and you're still one game under 500.
Right.
Like it just doesn't make any sense.
No sense. It makes zero sense, and that's why I really can't see. I mean, maybe Ohtani would stick around, but I get the feeling that he's getting tired of losing.
Realistically, where do you think he ends up? I'm just curious.
You don't like the answer. I don't like the answer.
What, you think he ends up as a Met?
Either a Met or a Yankee.
Yeah, I mean, Yankees make the most sense. Yeah, well, yeah, and that's possible. I always thought, if and I've said this actually to Danielle the other day, so if old man Steinbrenner was still alive, he would have been a Yankee 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And he'd be by far the richest person on the planet.
But now, let me ask you this. So with Juan Soto flying back with John Middleton on that plane, on the Phillies plane,
mm-hmm.
The Phillies signed Juan Soto this offseason. No tampering going on there at all.
No.
What does that do to your lineup? What flexibility does that allow you to go out and make a deal for Ohtani?
Yeah, I mean it could. You'd have to start with if you're doing that now, because they're the only thing that would make sense. I don't know. Like that's the tough part because look, they haven't really done much with Aaron Nola, right, in terms of contract talks.
Mm-hmm.
Right, he's kind of at the end of the rope there. He's your ace. You need to replace him for one if he doesn't resign, or they find no way to resign him, and to throw another bat in there. Just obviously Schwarber's not going anywhere. There's no one that's going to take the contract right now. Nick is positioned and right. There's no one that's going to take him right now. And quite honestly, I think they've got a nice mixture with Marsh and Pache and as your center field and fourth outfielder, respectively.
Right.
I think that works. Harper, I don't think is going back to the outfield. I firmly believe he'll be at first base, as has been said after the All-Star break, and I think that's where he'll be from now on. He'll be doing time between first and DH. If he sticks at first base, your realistic option is to put Schwarber at DH, so it would open up an outfield position. I know Ohtani's been DHing a lot more these days, but he's an outfielder.
Right.
You could do something in that regard if they don't have a Juan Soto. I do honestly firmly believe, though, that that's what tends me to think that they would end up with a Soto more than an Ohtani. Is that, I don't know that they have the resources at this point.
I see here, and here's where I see Juan Soto. I see John Middleton jumping out of the closet like Charlie Day. Wild card, bitches. And just, you know what? Fuck it. Let's go. Ohtani, come on, let's go.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
And Soto, let's go. I could see him losing his fucking mind if we don't at least make it to the World Series again. I could see John Middleton losing his fucking mind and being like, I'm signing everybody.
Yeah, and they did just add another billionaire partner
to
their ownership group. So I mean, who knows?
So there we go. That's
if I were thinking anything, and if there's any smoke to the Soto thing, I honestly think that fit works. Of course, hinging upon like your pitching. Is Nola going to be around next year?
I can't see Nola back next year.
And
maybe that's just my own personal bias because I don't like him. I hate the inconsistency. I don't think you can have an ace that's that inconsistent. Wheeler to me is the ace of this staff. And how old is Wheeler? He's in his 30s.
Yeah, he is 33. 30, just turned 33.
All right. So 33-year-old is your staff ace, which it's not terribly old anymore for starting pitcher, but he's not a spring chicken.
No.
So you've got to replace Nola with somebody. You don't have many internal options at this point with the way that what the hell is his name? Why can't I remember the Painter with that? The way how fragile he's been. You don't know what's going to happen with him, man. As a matter of fact, if I can find somebody that values Painter at this point, I'm trading him.
Oh yeah.
If I can bring back a good haul, Painter's gone.
Yep.
Because I don't know what's going to happen with his arm.
I think any conversation with any major star anyway, if it's a trade, he's got to be in the top of that conversation anyway, because if I'm going to hold on to a pitcher, it's probably going to be Mick Abel. And unfortunately, even him, he's only going to slot in the middle.
Right.
To me, I don't know that he'll ever be a top. And that's the problem right now. Like Nola, historically, has always been a decent pitcher, but even coming up out of, the draft, and he was a pretty close to major league ready pitcher, even at that point, coming out of college. He was never supposed to be an ace.
Right.
He was always supposed to be a 2 or a 3. That was what was said about him, and that's exactly what he's shown himself to be.
Yeah.
He's a 2 or 3 that he's on top of the rotation, and that's a problem. You're getting good pitching. You're getting good pitching from him right now, anyway. From him and Wheeler and Taiwan, they've all been great. They stumbled out of the blocks first part of the season, which is part of the reason why they're only 6-7 games above 500. So can they consistently hold that together right now? I don't know. I doubt it. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I definitely know that they'll have to target somebody, another bat, another pitcher. They definitely need someone else in the rotation, because regardless whether Nola comes back or not next year, and I know a lot of teams are struggling with it. The fifth starter is just they're scraping. They've tried different things all year long. Strom and Christopher Sanchez, and just
Dude, I'm telling you right now, we get the opportunity to bring back a an Otani level. I'm trading Painter, I'm trading Crawford, I'm trading Nola, and I'm trading Jalen Ortiz.
yeah, then they'll probably want more.
Give them. I would say everybody in the system except for Mick Abel is off the table.
Yeah,
Like,
they have to at least retain him, and I only say that thinking that Nolan might not come back.
yeah, and I'm throwing Nola in the trade. If they'll take him, I'm absolutely throwing Nola in that trade.
Yeah, I don't know what in the world's going to end up happening and all that, but I don't know. It's interesting to look at. But yeah, the second half of the season will be fun. We just finished up the All-Star break. Phillies kind of showed up good in that. The National League won for the first time in over a decade. Kimbrel locked it down, of course, in true Philly fashion. Made it a little interesting.
Well, gotta make it.
No, he did good. Nick was 1 for 2 with runs scored. Actually, ended up scoring the tying run off the home run from the guy from the Rockies. That ended up winning the MVP. Elias Diaz, is that his name?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And Philly Rob gets his All-Star win and his first appearance as the All-Star manager.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right. Let's finish up with some Eagles since we're ramping into July here. We're going to be, hitting it pretty hard soon here in the next couple months here, football time.
God, I can't wait.
Got any Eagles news, rumors, notes, anything?
I know everybody wants new shiny toys on this offense still, and you're still hearing the odd rumor about Hopkins or Elliott or what's his name, Dalvin Cook. I don't see it, man. I think the offense is set. I really, really would love them to bring in a Dalton Risner or some kind of guard with some experience just to compete for that right guard position with Cam Jurgens and Steen. But I really don't know that it's going to happen. I don't see them really making any splash moves. Would I love to see more firepower in the offense? Would I love to see more strong defensive players? Yeah, Buda Baker would look great at the back end of our secondary. Patrick Queen would probably be a decent addition to our linebacker core. I don't see it, man. I really don't see it happening. I think we need to get used to the fact that it's the team that we have, barring injuries, because that's always the great equalizer and that's always the great unknown.
Right.
Barring injuries, I really feel like we have the best roster in the NFC. I have a hard time thinking. I really, the only weak spots that I see looking at this team is right guard, because I feel like Jurgens is going to start at right guard, and I don't necessarily think he's big enough. He's a little light for the guard position or the modern guard position. But we'll see. We'll see how things play out. I'm obviously not a coach, so we'll see what happens there. Linebacker may be a little shaky. Some of the defensive depth is going to be an issue probably, but by and large, I still feel like we've got overall the best roster in the NFC.
Oh, I do too, and quite honestly, you're returning pretty much every offensive starter outside of Miles Sanders returning for Carolina, and I think you replaced them with some pretty pretty good running backs.
I mean, as long as the injury bug doesn't
yeah.
hit them, which that's been Penny's problem and that's been Swift's problem, is that they haven't played a full season.
Right, but now you have both of them, so you
Yeah.
can rotate them a little bit. You don't
Exactly.
have to. Yeah,
And you've got Kenny Gainwell, and you've got
and you still have Boston Scott. Yeah,
and you've got Trey Sermon, depending upon what
yeah.
happens.
Who's another wild? He's wild card basically.
Right.
You know?
And you've got the only two starters that aren't returning is Isaac Seumalo at right guard, and like you said, Miles Sanders at running back.
Yep,
that's pretty damn good. Now on the defensive side, obviously you're missing some major pieces. Both your safeties are gone from last year. You're missing your starting linebacker. You're missing Javon Hargrave up the middle. You're missing two of your three linebackers have been replaced. It's going to be interesting. You're returning both your corners, which you thought you were going to lose at least one of them. So that on that side, we kept that together. You've added what you've added through the draft and honestly through free agency. We didn't make any big splashy moves on defense in free agency, but the players we got are solid, if not spectacular.
Yeah.
So I feel like that we'll see a drop. There's going to be a drop off in the immediate, in the immediate future. There's going to be a drop off as the season goes on, because you also got to think you've got a new offensive coordinator and a new defensive coordinator. So your players are still learning. Your players are still learning their system. Now the offense should be similar, if not the same.
Right.
It's obviously not got the same person running it, so the play calling is where you're going to see a difference. But the defense is completely different, so that's where there's going to be probably the biggest amount of growing pains. So we'll see what happens there. But you've got solid players, Nakobe, and honestly, building your core off of the Georgia defense will help mitigate those growing pains because you've got players that know how to play together.
Exactly. And the other thing another move I did like is picking Mariota as the backup.
Yeah.
I think that's a solid backup that can play not the same, but he can play similarly. He's always been noted for being an athletic quarterback, and I think he would make a difference just in case as a handcuff. He'll fit in better in my opinion to that scheme anyway.
And honestly, an underrated pickup that they made. There's two guys that are underrated that they picked up. One of which being the other quarterback that they got this year, Tanner McKee, who, if we talked about briefly during our draft episode, if he would have been drafted with his draft class, he would have been a first or second round pick. They got him in like the 6th or 7th, I think, or maybe he was even undrafted. I think he was like a 6th or 7th round pick. And then you've got Ben Van Summeren, who's a linebacker that they signed, who's just an athletic freak. He was an undrafted free agent, athletic freak. And he didn't get invited to the combine, but at his pro day, if you look at his numbers from the pro day, disgusting. He could be one of the guys. He could be the next TJ Edwards. He could be the next, pick your favorite undrafted free agent that really made a difference in the league, and that could be him. So I'm excited to see what ends up happening during training camp. Again, hopefully we avoid the injury bug. I'm knocking on wood right now because that's the only thing that I really see derailing us.
Yeah, no, I agree. And going back on McKee real quick, he was in the 6th round at 188. So
yeah,
he was toward the end of the draft there. But no, it'll be interesting. I'm excited for it. This is a fun time for sports because baseball is really now ramping up into, your postseason run here. What teams are going to make the moves, buyers or sellers, and then you've got NFL starting up, and then the off to the races.
Yeah.
All right. Well, any parting words?
Oh yeah. One thing we forgot to talk about too is we're looking at potentially starting our own Philly sports website because of all the damn clickbait articles that we're reading and the stupid ass articles that we're reading, and it's just kind of pissing us off. And all the shit like you were telling me with Taiwan Walker, where they basically made up a story about him not going to the All-Star game so that he could take a vacation with his family, and he called out the outlet that put that out there, rightfully so. And so we're kind of kicking that around, but
yeah, we'll probably throw some articles out there. It'll be we'll try to do it as like a sister to this podcast. Have a site that's of the same name or similar anyway, and just Philly sports related, and maybe throw some other sports items here and there. But that's kind of yeah, exactly. That's you gotta have a focus, right? But no, that's kind of the crux of it all. Is like, yeah, every time I turn around, it's like just, oh man, like it's. I love reading like conjectures and rumors and stuff. Even if they don't really have any, any real, weight
veracity to them, but
exactly.
It makes you think.
Exactly. But if you're just gonna flat out make up stuff and whatever, then that's not cool. Or at least put some thought behind it.
Right.
And kind of think of the people that you're writing about too. That's kind of messed up. But no, I think it'll be fun. We'll get that together here in the coming days, weeks, whatever it takes us. We're just kind of just now, getting that ideas brainstorming, if you will. So, but anyhow, yeah, I think that wraps us up. You got any closing words?
I think I can think of a couple. Fuck Dallas.